David Liu is the co-founder and CTO of H2Ok Innovations, which provides efficient liquid management solutions for manufacturing clients, including Fortune 500 companies. David has been recognized as Forbes 30 under 30 as an entrepreneur and leader in clean tech, tackling the application of digital technologies in fundamental but often more outdated, slow to change manufacturing, infrastructure, and supply chain spaces for more sustainable operations. At H2OK Innovations, David leads product development and engineering. David and I met at Brown University, where David got a bachelor's degree in chemistry and computer science. David, I love that we're meeting at 7 a.m. We're doing this. But I really thank you
I
so
love
much
it.
for taking the time. Start of the week, you want to like get your shit done. So I really appreciate your time.
Exactly. Appreciate it, Ryan. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Tell us, David, what does H2OK Innovations do?
Yeah. So H2Ok Innovations, we are a IoT ML operating system for industrial manufacturing and supply chains, helping with liquid optimization, like especially in that space. And like what we are really focused on is pioneering the development and deployment of closed loop machine learning models for shop floor controls. If you think of like manufacturing and factories and facilities, they're extremely automated. But a lot of the automations are static based. So you think of like someone codes in the automation, like repeated again and again and again and again. And we're really focused on how do we take kind of data, real time data, and make real time controls that are driven, that are smarter, more efficient, and more sustainable. Think of like a beverage facility. Like maybe do filling and they do the like production for 18 hours during the day. Then they shut down for 4 hours during the day to run for like flush with water for an hour to clean, and then flush with chemicals to clean for an hour, and then flush with water again to clean out the chemicals. This is a repetitive process, or it happens every time like you change a product or do a changeover. And what we're doing is like we're taking real time data and converting this static like time based process into a dynamic based process where we tell you when you're done cleaning, how your product quality is, so you can make these decisions in real time, in a automated manner. And the industries that we work with and saw a lot of success in range from the beverage industry to the food industry, condiments, dairy, to chemicals, pharmaceuticals, FMCG. So think of like shampoos, detergents, toothpaste, to like flavors and fragrances. So a wide range of industries. It's actually really interesting in terms of how applicable and widespread these liquid operations are.
That's so cool. And that's also so different than the idea you were working
Mhm,
on when we were both at Brown. Um, could you tell us
mhm.
about your efforts like pivoting and how you ended up learning about this problem space?
Yes, definitely. So if you remember kind of our time at Brown, when I was doing a lot of work, we were a lot ideating on a lot of different problems within you know liquids within water, because I was really passionate about water at that time, and still am. And so we actually started off doing a lot of work with environmental and governmental agencies. And if you remember, like I actually did work with the USGS, measuring harmful algal blooms and contamination in lakes and rivers, and was really passionate about that. But then, after graduating, I was also, super interested in, as like passionate about the entrepreneurship space, and took a lot of the ideas, kind of the initial technologies we've been developing and designing, and uh, pivoted to the manufacturing and the industrial space. And like what we really think a lot about is like, how do I bring value to people, bring value to uh, kind of to the world? And so, although the USGS, we still kind of actually email quite a bit today. We pivoted to the industrial space because we saw that, hey, we were able to make a real impact. We are able to make value, and people were willing to kind of pay for our technologies and our product, and kind of be able to scale our solution in a much larger and a widespread way.
Yeah, makes sense. And were you able to port any of your technologies over, or was it just like the learnings you had that you were able to port over when you started working in the manufacturing space rather than for lakes and bodies of water?
So definitely, like I feel like most of the things that we pour over were like the entrepreneurship mindset and the customer kind of
Let's go.
being able to do customer interviews, really dive deep into problems on a first principles basis. But of course, like I'm also thinking a lot about like, hey, what technology work well here? What can we apply here? What is like the interdisciplinary aspect in terms of like problems here that we can be brought into another space? And so I think that's super powerful because um, I feel like in order to make innovation or actually to make innovation in this space, it often requires kind of the combination of a lot of different backgrounds. And I think that's also what makes our team really unique. It's kind of the combination of different skill sets, different backgrounds to solve kind of a problem within various, like within a specific sector, and also kind of bring the learnings from one sector to another sector. And so I think it's all of the above, like you said. Mhm.
Yeah. When we met at Brown, you were working on H2Ok, and I feel like
Mhm.
you always had kind of that entrepreneurial spirit in you, and that it
Mhm.
was close to certain. I felt that you would be tackling like starting your career as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, what have, yeah, what led to that entrepreneurial spirit for you?
So I think like at Brown, when first came in, I think like I was really into academia and I was really into research, and I'm still like that's a deep passion of mine. I kind of have like a few dreams in this world. Like one of them is actually to win. I don't know if you know about this, is to like win a Nobel Prize, and
Let's
the other one
go.
is like
Don't laugh. It's
to
happening.
other one is like to make impact in like at a large scale through
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. And so like academia is something I'm super deeply passionate about. I've also done a lot of work in like kind of during the summers, in large corporate organizations, and so like I think it's something I tested out. I It's really funny because like when I work on something, I'm extremely passionate, extremely driven, and obsessed about it, and like 100%
Yeah.
obsessed about the work I'm doing. And then,
Hmm.
like when I'm working in a large corporate organization, I'm like one of the few people who, stay late enough that I know all the janitors and the work in the office, and so
David
like
gets
like I
obsessed.
I I do get obsessed, and so
Yeah.
like I think like what led me to entrepreneurship was also because like when I was working in this environment, I don't feel like I see myself in a 9 to 5 job or see kind of that routine in me. And when I work on something, I'm like I give my all to it. And so I was really deciding
Hmm.
between academia and entrepreneurship. But then like what I was weighing kind of my options, I was like, hey, I could after graduating, I could go pursue a PhD, spend like 5 or 6 years working on a few papers and thinking about the impact that I can have, or I can build a team that can completely change a whole industry. And I just thought like, hey, I think I'd much rather at this age like take the risk, try something and try to swing for the fences, and build something that I feel like I can have the potential to make large scale impact and like really make a difference in the whole industry.
What
Mhm.
have you learned being a full-time entrepreneur like, since graduation? When I dove into the startup space after graduation, one thing that I had to learn is how to manage people and deal with people,
Yes.
and that's a hard skill. I'm
Mhm.
curious what you think some of the most like fast track, accelerated parts of your learnings have been as a entrepreneur so young.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm super fortunate to work with Annie, and I'm more than happy to talk about that dynamic and that relationship as well if you're
Yeah.
interested. But like the learnings, I feel there's so many learnings. I think not just from like product development talking with customers, really, I think I'm a super big believer in like first principles approach in terms of trying to understand a problem to kind of problem
Mm-hmm.
solving and solution solving, or building a solution. But like when it comes to managing and like building a team, I learned so much in terms of leadership, in terms of like how to really bring the best out of people and really kind of get them engaged and driven and bought in terms of a single goal. Because I feel like what we've done really well is like we always think in terms of how do we empower people to, bring their best ideas, and be really motivated and kind of solve a super difficult problem. And also like how do we
Mm-hmm.
not just like one is like how do we bring them onto the team, and then the second point
Mm-hmm.
is like basically how to hire them, but also like how do we engage, how do you keep people motivated and kind of build a culture of like empowerment and push people to like reach their potential and kind of also learn by doing. And like I'm constantly amazed by my team. But like let me just talk into maybe some specifics in terms of hiring. Like I don't know if you're interested in on the tactile stuff, but
Yeah.
also like probably talk high level as well. But like high level from in terms of like I think what we really believe is like how do we get people to um, see themselves working at H2Ok Innovation? So I like when I bring people on, I always have them in for like one day, like a working like the final interview stage is like kind of bring them in and workshop with them and try to problem solve with them and see how they riff in terms of solving like a difficult problem or something that we're thinking about, and kind of are we able to bounce ideas off of each other, and also just being super transparent with people in terms of my hesitations. Like if am I have concerns about bringing you on the team, like I voice them to you and I sit down with like during lunch or dinner and talk about these concerns. And so they can be able to share like why my concerns aren't, founded, or, why they will be able to work well at H2OK Innovations. And also kind of on the team, it's being able to kind of have a high degree of trust with everyone on the team to be able to operate well, but also to have kind of enough oversight to be able to guide people in the right direction and kind of use their efforts in what will kind of be best for how to guide them in their own careers, but also kind of guide in terms of the development of the product and the vision of H2OK Innovations. I think like there's trust, like having a high degree of trust, but also um, like giving them a high degree of trust, but also being able to guide them and lead kind of build kind of a vision, a roadmap, and be able to guide people in like the development of their own careers. Like really tease out what they want to develop and how they develop in their own careers, and really empower them and lead them and show them a path to get there, but also like guide them in the direction and the vision of H2OK Innovation, so they're able to use their best efforts to kind of do and like really push the needle in terms of moving the company forward and kind of our vision forward as well. And so kind of combining those and being able to have a lot of trust, but also guidance is I feel like is key for empowering people on the team.
Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love that the final stage of the interview is you bringing folks in and problem solving together.
Mm-hmm.
And something that you've mentioned a few times is your first principles approach to problem
Mm-hmm.
solving. What does that mean? And how do you think about problem solving and innovating when there's no obvious answer and it requires rigorous R&D?
Yes, I think like what I am really big into is like really understanding and diving into like the why this is an issue. So for example, like I feel like when I first got started in engineering, like when we're thinking about engineers, and a lot of a big trope is like we want to put the best tech into this product. We want to bring AI into this product. We want to bring X into this product. Like it'll be cool. Like we can build all these features in, and we think that the customers will love these features. But I really kind of want to sit down and before we design and build a product, I don't think about like, hey, what this product will look like. I actually think a lot in terms of like what are the problems we are trying to solve, like why are these problems there, and like and think through like when we're building like a product, I think like there's two customers. There's your internal customers, there's your team. Like how do you build the product so like it's more scalable, easy to work with within the team, so that your team can get the solution out to the larger world, and how to kind of maintain it. But also like other customers, they clearly your customers' problems. Like, what are you actually trying to solve? Like, how does the customer interact with your product, uh, uh and like, you know, how does the product make them feel? What are the problems you're actually solving for them? And also on the like the business side, not just like also like diving into the first principles of what these problems are. Like, why are the customers having these problems? Are these actual real problems? Um, like, if we solve them, like, what does it really mean in terms of business, in terms of like an impact in for the customer? And then once we have kind of this list in terms of what are the problems we're trying to solve, once everyone is aligned in the problems we're trying to solve, then we tease out the features and to be able to solve these problems and build from there. Because like if we just go in and start building a product and without alignment in terms of what the problems are trying to solve here, it's going to cause a lot of disagreement, a lot of commotion, and just a lot of gridlock in terms of the decision making and the design phase of a solution. So kind of that's why I feel like first principles is super key in terms of development and engineering, but also like just day to day how we operate as a organization.
Yeah, I love that because I think something that's actually so fundamental is like, what is the problem? I feel like that
Yes.
question is actually not that easy. Like, what are you trying to
Mhm.
solve here? Because oftentimes we jump to solutions and we just have, I guess in this case, just some ideal solution in mind. Um, but you
Mhm.
can really miss the mark. And although you mentioned that aligning on what the problems are helps with internal alignment, your first level customer, I think it's also just like you might waste so much time if you end up being like, hey, team, let's just build it anyway. And then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, people don't really need this, or the approach to the problem is just not, there's no market fit because the
Hmm.
problem was incorrectly understood, partially understood, or
Hmm.
misconstrued to the like
Hmm.
initial findings. So I love that. I think so much of like what's so important in general in life is the ability to ask questions. And it seems like you really kind of, especially at the beginning stage, you're really asking a lot of questions to set that context. So that's
Yes.
definitely really interesting.
Yes, it's
Um,
so key because like if you think about it, actually when we first got started, how we got our first customers was through this interview process. Um, so in the very early stage, we were doing like hundreds and hundreds of customer interviews, and like we were interviewing plant managers, operators, really asking about what are their biggest problems, what are their headaches, what's you know what's their key priority items in terms of uh, like blocking them from being able to move to kind of the next stage. And so like uh, for each of these customer interviews are also kind of semi-sales calls as well, because we're like learning about the problem, like learning about how they envision kind of their workflow being like. And so like we had this plant manager who was telling us how he had issues with oils, like waste in terms of like high oil concentration, high waste going to the waste stream, and they were getting kind of dinged for that, and they're not operating sustainably, not operating efficiently. And so I was like, hey, why not we solve this problem for you? And so basically, like they had high oil concentration go into their waste stream, high wastewater, and then they wanted to find a solution to be able to understand the concentration of their waste, be able to treat it more sustainably, more efficiently, and also kind of have a better environment. This way, also have a better environmental footprint in their operations. And so we were like, okay, really interesting problem. What like we in theory, like I was just thinking, hey, how's the technology going to solve this? Like we actually like we did some testing and we were able to see kind of in our own lab how we're able to use our technology to understand like their oil concentration, their FOGs, and to be able to alert them so that they can operate in a dynamic manner. And so like we did some recent testing in lab, we saw that it was able to be successful. And so like instead of like you know thinking about the problem, I'm like why not just like sign a contract, we'll solve this problem for you. We'll get like, and I think like the best way to also understand whether or not this is a real problem is to like make the sale and see if people are actually willing to pay and buy like this product and pay for the solution. And so we created SOW, we signed SOW. That's how we got our first contract. And like me and like it was just me and a few other like two other engineers and Annie at the time. and we're just hacking, like staying overnight to kind of get our solution built, and then worked in like the machine shop. And this was during COVID as well, and so like uh, it was like everything was under quarantine. We were like sometimes in the machine shop, sometimes working in our garage, but able to kind of get everything together and finally ship the solution to their customer. And it was like a huge success. They loved the product, and uh, it was a huge, you know, it was a great feeling in the like at that time and be able to successfully deliver and actually bring value to a customer. And so like I think it's super important, even though we are kind of the engineering super heavy in terms of engineering, our company is actually like I always believe like our company is a sales driven, like even engineering companies are sales led, sales driven organizations because it's like really key in terms of really to using sales to understand whether or not you're solving a problem that customers are actually having a pain and willing to kind of and really bringing value to kind of the industry.
Yeah, definitely. I
Mhm.
love what you said about if you really want to see if your idea is gonna work, you want to position it as if the solution already exists and just see if like people bite. That is such an effective method of testing if you're really solving a problem here. Tell us about the who was the first customer that you signed, and could you tell us about some of your key clients right now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The first customer was like a huge like ag organization. So we were doing kind of work in their like edible oils division. So this is like vegetable oil refining and things like that. But our customers now range from like things the customers we can share publicly are like Unilever, Coca Cola, Ecolab, um, and basically doing work in for like Unilever in like their Ben and Jerry's, their ice cream facilities, and doing work in beverage facilities and in dairy, and like I said, and also in like the nutrition businesses, in flavors and fragrances, in cosmetics to FMCG. So you think of detergents, things, all those things, shampoos, and also the pharma space, the chemical space. So it's a really huge, like wide area. Also doing work in kind of the wafer cleaning semiconductor space and also in the HVAC space and data centers. So you think of like it's a huge wide breadth in terms of what we can tackle. And like our big focus is really uh, you know deploying these software and ML solutions that are being able to help all these industries and these facilities to optimize their operations and be more sustainable and be more efficient in how they're able to kind of meet their targets, like both their sustainability targets, but also kind of their um, you know helping them be more sustainable in the workforce as well. Because we think of the U.S., we're trying to bring manufacturing back here and into the states. However, like a huge problem is also like not just climate sustainability, but workforce sustainability. Like, how do we get people to be onboarded? How do we train them? How do we kind of maintain operations in these facilities? And like these are huge problems that we're thinking about and trying to tackle. Is how do we deploy technology assisted solutions so that we're able to uh, train and onboard an ever evolving workforce and be able to kind of onboard them and allow them to operate these really complex machinery, which traditionally has been done by a lot of like these super amazingly like skilled plant managers and plant operators. But as they transition out, as they retire, like how do we be able to still run these operations with new people and still get the same quality and efficiencies as we had in the past? So yeah, really excited about this space um, and excited about what we can do here.
With the people operations side, are I didn't know you were expanding to this space. I'm curious how, like you're tackling the space. How did you end up realizing that that's like within the scope of your work and an area that you're
Mhm.
going to be able to provide like effective solutions?
Yeah, I so like we said it's uh, goes to customer interviews and talking with customers like what are their like headaches about? What are they thinking about, top of mind for them? And like constantly like things are like talking about, hey, we have changeover in terms of people transitioning out of like my operations. This really leads to a lot of kind of shifts in terms of bandwidth and capacity and being able to kind of operate sustainably. And so we were thinking a lot also in terms of how can our solution be able to solve this? How do we message this? And how do we kind of work with our customers to be able to uh, uh, allow them to be able to still operate with this ever evolving workforce? So, like I said, it comes down to really talking and listening to your customers and having that customer obsession.
Yeah. I'd
Hmm.
love to go back to obsession. You mentioned that you get
Hmm.
obsessed. I don't have an addictive personality, but when I'm working on something, I get like completely obsessed sometimes. Do you do you always get obsessed with all the different things you're working on? Like, how do you sustain that energy? Because I can get obsessed, but I need to balance that with some other things because otherwise I'll just like dive into like a hole going somewhere, nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel obsessed all the time and very driven and energized and curious with your client base and the problems that you're
Hmm.
solving? Or do you try to kind of, I don't know, make that obsession something systematic or build some discipline around
Hmm.
it so that you have structures to fall back to if you end up like kind of confused or running out of steam or something?
Yeah. I think it ties also a lot in terms of like uh, how do we stay obsessed? And because I think as entrepreneurs, when we are building our own like building towards a vision, definitely get super obsessed in something, and there's many ups and downs along the road. Like how do we keep our mental health, okay? How do we manage all this? How do we get not get burnout? I think this is something that uh, like when I first got started, I struggled with a lot, but now I'm like so much better because um, I think like for me, having an extremely strong like community for yourself is so key in terms of like when you're at work, you're really focused, but coming back, like having a great group of people, kind of I live with that are not just like into the entrepreneurship world, but many different aspects and many different disciplines. And it kind of helps me step away in terms of what I'm working on and really kind of see and look at how other people are thinking about different things and what are their kind of their passions and what they're thinking about. And also kind of, uh, uh, it really allows me to also kind of take a step back and like I said, like think on a larger scale because like I think for me in terms of uh, you know routine, I get really focused, but then every kind of year or so I like to take a little bit of time off to really step away from the business. And this really became apparent when I kind of took my trip and went on vacation. It's like as an entrepreneur, you will think about your business, but like if you're not, but when you step away, you're not fully like when you're not operating the business, when you're able to step away and think about it and really kind of also look at these other disciplines, like I think like when you, it's a little bit meta, but like when you step away from your business, it actually can help your business move forward faster sometimes because one like your team is able to operate without you. You give them the ability to really take ownership, and you'll be
Mhm.
amazed in terms of like how your team is able to deal with fires and challenges that come along the way. So you help them grow, but also allows you to like think a little bit in terms of um, and like when I'm taking my time off, of course, like you're always kind of learning, and I like I love looking at like taking retreats to learn about maybe how like let's say the taking time to see how the music industry does something or how the entertainment industry does something or how we can also go and look at factory tours and go to like how the chemical industry does something, how the aerospace industry does something, and really kind of like take time to learn about different things and then bring that into background back into your business and think through, okay, how do we like bring this this new way of operating to my business and to this industry to help kind of transition and move this forward. And so like uh, I think it's like um, sometimes taking time off, like maybe what I'm trying to get to is like taking some time off is actually going to be super helpful in helping your business be able to move forward as well. And so it also helps you avoid burnout because I feel like I have so many founder friends that suffer from like founder depression because it's so tough along the way. Um, and I think a combination of great people, great community, and also having some time to yourself is super key to help you uh, kind of move forward. And also, if you actually, one more thing I want to talk about is like also like sleep in terms of like getting a good amount of sleep. Because if you are a business leader, like your most important, the most important things you're going to do during the day uh, is, especially as your organization grows, is making decisions and making good decisions. And so, like when you are at work, you need to be extremely focused. You need to be sharp. You need to be making like decisions for like your business. And so I think you need to be clear minded, and that requires kind of a not just like working all night. Like when the business needs to, like you will need to work all night. But then like when it comes to day-to-day operations, like and just like you getting a good amount of sleep is so key and being able to for you to kind of do what's best for your organization.
Yeah, definitely. What you said about community brings to me because I don't know about you, but sometimes I think if you're in like a busy or maybe a kind of less healthy like mindset, sometimes you can try to retract and be like, okay, I need to put more hours in my work and then start leaving your
Yeah.
social life a little bit behind. But I think what you're saying is so right. Like, I think it goes back to like, actually, I listened to a podcast episode interviewing Brian Chesky, the CEO and
Mhm.
co-founder of Airbnb.
Yeah.
And apparently he was like going crazy basically because of the craziness of Airbnb taking it public. And apparently
Mhm.
Barack Obama is his like mentor. And he was like, he asked, you know, the former president, how do you not go insane? And apparently Brooke was like, it sounds like you need friends. It's like hard to go insane if you have a strong community of people. Like you can't really go
Exactly.
insane. And I think that's so right. But how do you like, I guess it's like kind of an art, but is there a way that you think about your own time of effective decision making or an effective use of your time versus busy work, highly operational work? Um, because I think being an entrepreneur, um, you have to be ready to really get your hands dirtier, all of the above. But how have
Mhm.
you thought about your relationship with your time? Are you protective of it? Do you think about how to delegate as much as possible? Or do you think it's just a combination? Sometimes you do have to put in the hours, and then other times you can really focus on making those good fundamental decisions, thinking about the vision, so on and so forth.
I feel like the founder should be working on things that the business has not solved yet. So this is either like in the early stages, this could be maybe the first sales playbook or the first MVP of the product, to then like maybe marketing, to maybe like then thinking through, well, what's the expansion strategy? How do we expand the customer? How do we do like prove that we can scale? And so like these, there's going to be questions that are come along the way in terms of um, building a business, and the founder is like in the initial stage are kind of the operators to solving and answering these questions. But as you design a playbook, design a way to solve this, then that's when I kind of start delegating to people within my organization. Be like, okay, we figured kind of, we have an idea of this. Here's how you can lead this and design and build upon it for yourself. And so um, I think that's what I think in terms of focus. I feel like one of the strengths that I have, and both Annie and I have, is like where we have the ability to operate, like we
Mm.
then to be able to execute, and so like if something doesn't work, like we're able to get our hands dirty and dive in and to help fix something and get it up and running. And so kind of a challenge that definitely that I've had because I'm a natural executor in terms of operations, like is to for me to step back and allow myself to delegate this to someone else. And so kind of that's definitely a big learning along the way. And I think like it's also kind of the part where I bring about like if you step back and allow others to kind of take lead and in terms of running something, you'll be amazed in terms of, and you'll have so much more trust in terms of your team and how they're able to operate and run something. And so um, yeah, I think that's how I kind of think a lot in terms of how what do I delegate and what do I execute upon and work on. And of course, like if you're in the early stage organization, the founders should still be doing the sales. You should be talking a lot with customers. And so I think I fill my day with a good chunk of it with just still doing like customer calls and sales so that we are able to always kind of think in terms of how do I continue to build my product? How do I like refine the sales strategy to be able to better connect with those we are trying to solve this problem for? Um, yeah, and in terms of time, like how I manage my time and whether or not kind of uh, yeah, how do I kind of delegate this? I would say that as the company grew, like I start to value my time more and more and more. And so maybe the point in kind of today, it's like I want to get up early so that we can get some this interview done, so we can have time for the day to be able to do deal with all the various other kind of tasks as well. And so I think being specific and intentional in terms of why am I taking this time to do this, and also kind of thinking back also in terms of first principles, like I said, I like think through like why are we doing this, uh, and what's the like what value does it bring, and does it and like what is this driving to is really key in terms of thinking through my time as well, and where do I devote my energy towards.
Yeah, definitely. I think with growing a business, it's 0 to 1 in so many different fronts. Like you're not
Mhm.
only building 0 to 1 for a product, but like you said, the sales playbook, and then growing the team, hiring, retaining talent, training people. Um, so yeah, I definitely can. Yeah, I think it's a lot, but I guess as the business grows, like you said, you can start being more productive with your time, delegating, and all
Mhm.
of that. Um, you mentioned Annie, and I am curious, especially as we speak about delegation, what it's been like working with your sister, how you
Mhm.
complement each other, and just
Mhm.
what is it like working with family?
Yeah, I think it's a huge privilege of ours, and it's one of the like a key strength of our organization. It's because like Annie and I like we're extremely close, and we know how to argue with each other. Because like when we're really close with each other. But the second thing, I think the most important thing is like we know how to argue with each other, and so we know how to
Mm,
have these hard conversations because we've been arguing since like since we were kids, and
I
so
love that.
because because of that, we're able to be super transparent with each other, be super straight up with each other, and also able to call each other out when like we're not you know performing to kind of what we need to be at. And so I think that's like a privilege that not many people have, is to be able to just be very straight up and also talk about how you feel about something as well, not just like tactically, but also how you feel, and have that trust with each other. And also like one of the key things is we're really good in terms of balancing our interdisciplinary skill sets. Annie's an amazing storyteller, and she's really good in terms of talking with customers, talking with investors, and while I'm like very good in terms of the operations execution, and also kind of the technical side and thinking through product vision, product development, and also asking questions. And so like we're able to balance that out to really kind of uh, uh, build a business on two fronts where kind of both of these are super key in order to scale and grow. And definitely been an extremely a huge privilege. And like uh, yeah, I think it's super funny when I think of our relationship, because sometimes we will get into some of the most pettiest fights. Uh, but then like when we are like at work, like literally sometimes on a Zoom call, like we would be like fighting in terms of, hey, why do you have so much, why are you more on the video than I am? And like, hey,
Oh
you're
my God,
taking more space.
move.
But then I know exactly. Or like I actually touch her, like, stop touching me. But then when we were at business mode, when we were like at work, and we were like, once the customer jumps in the call, full business mode, and like it's really funny to, it's a lot of fun getting to work with her. Hmm.
Yeah, I love that so much. And you talk about like with Annie, you're able to have like arguments, both petty to just get the energy out, but then also like, real, probably substantial arguments. And
Hmm.
you also, I recall you mentioned when you interview people, you actually are transparent with any concerns that you have with prospective
Hmm.
candidates. So they have the chance to
Yes.
tell you their perspective on your concern. And it just comes back to the ability to have honest and open conversations. And I think that takes a lot of courage. So that's really cool. Um, I,
Yeah, I think that's super key because being transparent is, and like it also shows a sense of vulnerability as well. And like if you're
yeah.
honest and you're vulnerable with the other person, they reciprocate the same way. And uh, and I think like it builds trust, and it builds confidence, and I think that's key to building a strong and cohesive team.
Yeah, trust is so important. I guess
Hmm.
with most siblings have that. You just have that trust built in. But I think, especially with your
Hmm.
team, I think it's great you focused on that because maybe, like, I think what trust and respect are probably some of the most important things in people dynamics in like a professional setting. But like, trust is
Hmm.
something that you can probably like control a little bit more. And
Hmm.
so definitely, yeah, really interesting. What are your values, David, and does that translate into H2OK Innovations values?
Hmm. Hmm. I think that the value that we've learned along the way is kind of this mindset of give first. It's actually a model from the society we've been a part of, like Techstars, Farm to Fork, because um, I think like that is so key to how Annie and I operate, because we were so fortunate to have so many great mentors along the way that has helped us, get to where we are today. Our investors are extremely kind of not just dedicated to the growth of business, but also dedicated to how Annie and I grow as people, as founders, as kind of
Mhm.
leaders, and shaping kind of how we develop. And that's something I'm super appreciative about, and all the people who help our organization along the way. And so, like when I think of how we operate, I always think a lot in terms of how do we uh, give or help uh, those around us. And so this is our employees, those we interact with, our customers, and it's also kind of stems to why we have such a huge customer obsession as well. And so like when you think of our employees, we're really committed in terms of like how do we help them achieve their vision where they want to develop in their career. And it's also kind of key in employee retention as well, because people want to come to an organization where they see a future for themselves, see kind of a future of growth, and how they can develop as individuals. And so really think and kind of give in terms of Annie and I, when we first started the business, we had like one-on-one, so we would meet with our employees and be able to get feedback from them, be able to give them feedback and really kind of guide them and think through, oh, um, how do we get to where you want to be, and then to kind of people we interact with through our operations, like treating people with respect, and thinking how we can help others, and then also like with our customers, really obsessed with our customer problems, really diving deep and thinking through how do we solve this problem for you, how do we make your life easier, and doing kind of whatever it takes to kind of get that to deliver for our customers is like those are that's like a value that I think we hold dear, and also like what the organization holds dear that we pass down towards, and like super appreciative, like overall just like super appreciative all the help that we've received, and being able to kind of reciprocate whenever kind of we get help. We also think through like, hey, how do we help this other person? How do we help you? do like feel free to reach out. We end every conversation like feel free to reach out if there's any way we can be helpful. If we can be able to kind of revalue to you, just feel free to let us know. And so I think that's helped us build a lot of really strong relationships along the way. Hmm.
Yeah, I see a few through lines of our whole conversation. You talk about like curiosity and learning through and through, open and transparent conversations that build trust. And
Hmm.
I think what you mentioned about your investors and being part of Techstars, the mentors that have arisen from that are all invested in your growth. I think that's fantastic. And in the scale of things, it's crazy because we are so young right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really cool. Something that I felt when I was growing a startup is while you need to create a 0 to 1 for in so many different angles, not only the problem and the solution, but in all of these like company building things, you do realize how much of that is common to all organizations. Like all organizations have to think about, unless you're a solopreneur, think about like team and culture and all of these things. So I think
Mm.
it may it made me feel like a little bit better when I was like, okay, it feels so confusing to me to try to build this from scratch. And I feel like I don't know if I'm doing it right. But it's like so many other people have done it before, you know? So
Yeah,
it's great that you're getting that input from others as well.
definitely, definitely. And I feel like there's so many like for me, in my opinion, is like there's so many who build it before you, and there's so many good resources to learn from, and we get so much like advice in terms of how do we think about a problem. I think one of the big things I've learned is like how to think about problems, how to like how do we tackle from like how do we build a solution, how do we build a product. I learned so much over the past few years, but a part of it I would also say is just you just got to try it and do it yourself and like learn along the way, because other people can tell you in terms of like, oh, you should do it like this, do it like this. But sometimes the best way to learn is just to experiment and try it yourself. Like we're also like a big fan in terms of being able to take uh, uh, like taking small steps, like fast small steps to be able to experiment to uncover like problems for like that can solve like to discover to develop like solutions that can solve like large problems. And so like I think like you also sometimes the best learning is also to just learn from your own experience. And so we are also have like a very action focused view in terms of how we operate. Um, and so, you know, so sometimes you gotta fall and you gotta, I guess, uh, take on the little bruises to learn along the way. Hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing faster than doing it yourself. And then just, well, you can learn a lot from other people, but ultimately, like, bias to action is
Hmm.
extremely important. Um,
Okay.
as much as other people's help can be extremely valuable and help you save time and identify themes and mental maps and problems as you execute, I think having that bias towards action is so critical when you're starting
So
something from
cool.
scratch. It's so important. So, David,
Hmm.
what's coming up next for H2OK Innovations?
Hmm. Hmm. So right now, we're hiring more people. We're growing the team on all fronts, from the engineering side, so software to looking for great software engineers, people working in like machine learning, data science, to hardware engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, uh, to also people on the business operations side. So, like I said, we're extremely sales-led organization. So looking for more sales, biz dev, and also people who are really just keen on joining an early stage company and being able to execute and be a part of this journey. So, I think the next stage is it's also a continuous stage, is growing the company, growing the team, and of course also scaling the impact with our current customers. Like we have some really key customers that we're really excited about that are scaling our technologies throughout their organizations, and really being able to uh, uh, kind of grow with them and bring that value to them is something that I'm super excited about and super looking forward to this next stage.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so anybody who's interested both on the engineering, machine learning, the technical side to sales and business development, apply to H2OK Innovations. They're growing. Any other way that the audience can help you? Are you fundraising at all?
Right now at this current moment, our focus is not on fundraising; it's on kind of building the business. How we might fundraise in later next year, but at this current moment in time, looking to continue to grow our impact. And so, if you are or know of anyone who are in kind of the industrial sector, working on sectors that we are trying to solve, or looking in an industry that or if you have problems, even just if you have problems, you're trying to think through how do we digitize, how do we innovate in the face kind of our changing climate, our changing kind of environment. Um, we'll love to kind of have a conversation, see if we can be uh, you know, bringing kind of our solutions and helping design solutions for you so that you can kind of be able to operate in a more efficient and sustainable manner. So, um,
Yeah. Thank you, David, so much for sharing more about H2OK, your journey, and your words of wisdom. I really, really appreciate your
mhm.
time.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate your time as well, and thanks for the great conversation.